Hello and welcome to the second tutorial video on Tactics Memoriam, a new TTRPG about changing the shape of the afterlife with your blade, playable with chess dice and a chessboard, available for totally free download now. I am Julian, Julie or Julie CL. I am the system's creator. If you're here, you have probably already seen the first video, which was a general overview of the book. Now we're going to be going a little bit more in depth as to one aspect of the gameplay, which is character creation and downtime. So basically, everything except combat. This is everything around combat. Yeah, you probably already watched the first video. If you're here for character creation, you are in the right place. We are going to be going through that in more depth. So the setting of Tactics Memoriam is that of a warrior's purgatory, so the characters that you will be creating and also the characters that you will be recruiting and fighting are other inhabitants of the warrior's purgatory of Memoria. They didn't make it to paradise or Valhalla or heaven or what have you, they are here. And they're trying to find salvation, and being a warrior's purgatory, often that salvation is through fighting, finding comrades, etc. You start the game by creating a hero unit. This is going to be somebody who is mechanically not able to be killed if they are taken off of the map by having their HP drop to 0. They basically just come back next time, either escaping or having some sort of immunity, and the purpose of this is that it allows you to focus your story on one character. I did go over the broad overview of this in the previous video, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth now and actually try creating a hero for ourselves. So, why don't we just go ahead and begin? On pages 16 and 17 are some examples as to why your hero might be invulnerable, as the case may be. Whether they are just wily or whether it is something more. So, let's go ahead and roll a d4 and just see what happens. Alright, so our hero is going to be number 2, the Will Incarnate. Your soul is not your own. Its power is passed down by other worthy warriors after their death, leaving this power to you. Myths say that the power of these previous legends are combined, stockpiled, making you the strongest wielder of this power yet, until you too inevitably pass it on and meet oblivion. Upon defeat, roll a d10. On a 5 to 10 after battle, your soul will be reincarnated into the bones of a slain body, reconstituting as yourself after the battle. On a 1 to 4, your time has come. A fragment of your consciousness and will passes on to a new warrior of your choosing. Create a new hero dragged into this conflict, or choose one of your allies to carry the responsibility. Regardless, one of your skills is passed on to your new self. This might be your character. This sort of My Hero Academia adjacent, inherited will, inherited power. The flavor as to why this character cannot be defeated in battle, or cannot be killed in battle, rather. They can still be defeated, taken off the board, just not permanently killed for the sake of your campaign, is that they have the ability to pass on their power to others, and they have received power from another as well. That adds its own stakes to the story, so you already have something juicy with this constantly reincarnating person or force of will as the center to your campaign. And you could have one hero character per campaign, commandeered by one player, or every player could have one. Really, whatever works for your story. We recommend starting with your hero's allies as well, because like games like Fire Emblem and Tactics Ogre, this game works best when it is multiple allies versus multiple enemies, and here are some ideas as to what the allies might be that you start with. The Mentor, a more experienced warrior and teacher to your hero, perhaps of unorthodox methods. They begin with one wound from a previous injury, and their wounds cannot be healed during downtime. In the event of their passing, one of their skills is passed on to your hero. Death in Tactics Memoriam is decided by wounds. Once you acquire 3, you perish. Your character no longer exists. They didn't achieve salvation. They might vanish into the ether, or they might manifest as a weapon in the Forest of Swords, etc. So this mentor character is kind of created to be somebody who might perish for the sake of the fiction, passing along their strength to the hero. They might additionally start with the Rival, a fellow combatant that matches your hero in skill, or at least tries to. Your hero and your rival may each have a bond rank of 2 with one another to begin. Bond ranks are very important in Tactics Memoriam because they allow you to ascend, basically promote to second-tier classes from first-tier classes, and you can also call upon your bonds in battle to grant advantage or change the rolls of the dice. And the final idea listed here for a potential starting ally to your hero is the Catalyst, someone who must be protected at any cost. Perhaps your hero needs to escort them somewhere or shepherd their growth so that their powers are not misused. If the Catalyst is defeated, they are captured instead. There isn't a formal mechanic for capturing, just think of it as additional fuel to your story. So, you might create a hero and start them off with these characters, either commandeered by the other players or just as others to exist alongside your heroes. So that's how you might start the game, and you would follow the steps of character creation mechanically from there. Right now, we're just focusing on the roleplay and the story of it. Your antagonist. Someone significant stands in the way of your goals here. They are your antagonist, and they need you gone. They are the human that embodies all you struggle against. They may be selfish and destructive, a fellow warrior with lofty goals, or even a mirror to yourself made hostile by circumstance. They have strength and loyal allies, be them human or monstrous, to make this place hell for someone like you. So, you need somebody standing in your way. Your antagonist is not going to be someone you necessarily are fighting at the very start of the campaign, though they might be a later goal for you. In the beta version of Tactics Memoriam, they are most likely going to be your final boss, your adversary. So there are 4 examples here for an antagonist, and likewise we're going to roll for them. The 4 examples, just to briefly describe them, are the Champion. The Champion is your legend among the dead. They are a walking force of destruction. Or you have the Fox, which is kind of the more trickster-like, conniving antagonist. You have the Angel, who is looking to purify this place through any means necessary. A little the ends justify the means, no matter how many lives I have to take to do so type of story archetype. And you also have the Hero of Another Story. Someone who might be very similar to you, who might also have noble goals, but for one reason or another, you are opposed to each other. So, we've decided that our hero will be the Will Incarnate. Let's see who their antagonist will be. That is number 4. Ooh, the Hero of Another Story. So just to read their description. They are always growing in power, they are a survivor, they are just like you. The Hero of Another Story is a fellow lost soul of Memoria, gathering strength and allies as they try to survive. You have much in common. Maybe they're also trying to rescue a loved one at any cost, doing everything to survive, or trying to change this place. But however your similarities unite you, there are too many differences to be anything other than enemies. If there is one rule to mirrors, it is that you and your reflection must draw your dagger at the same time. The Hero of Another Story is one of my favorite enemy ideas. This is kind of like the Ramza and Delita in Final Fantasy Tactics. Somebody with noble goals who is absolutely the main character in their own story, but just through circumstance, they are going to oppose you. So already we have something interesting. We can kind of start asking, why is the Will Incarnate opposed by the Hero of Another Story? Does the Hero of Another Story need to strike down the Will Incarnate to stop them from reincarnating because it's going to gradually bring about the end of the world or something like that? This is all stuff to be discussed at your table. The next section is admittedly kind of a tease for the final game. These are, excuse me, setting descriptors for 2 of the potential final bosses for Tactics Memoriam. We have the Shatterblade, a discarded war hero of a different time or place. He possesses a noble face that has turned gaunt, piercing eyes that have become paranoid, and a mythic weapon turned broken and jagged. And we also have Valum the Endless. Perhaps a serpent, perhaps a squid, or a whale. This god of the infinite blood sea is too enormous for any sailor to comprehend where she begins and ends. But again, Their stat blocks and their boss encounters are saved for the final game, but they can add some flavor to your setting, perhaps. Maybe your antagonist works for them, so they are too lofty to be confronted directly, but your antagonist is acting as their will somehow, just as an idea. Realms of Memoria. So these are places where your story might begin, or eventually end up, or it might be the setting for your whole mini-campaign. Excuse me. I'm going to be talking a lot, so brought a hot beverage, a little bit of tea. The Forest of Swords and the God Pit are the ones described here. Because this is the video focused on character creation and downtime, we're not going to go too deep into it. You can read them all in the totally free playable version for inspiration as to your story. Though this section is fun. The seeds of story. With your hero and antagonist being devised and the initial setting decided, let's plant ideas of story that may grow into something greater. Now, Tactics Memoriam is built to be accessible. Your GM doesn't need to make up everything on the fly. Let's have a theme. Let's have a theme as to why our characters are opposing each other. We'll roll a d10 to see what it is. 10. Ooh, interesting. They can't kill us all. So that's a bit of a thinker. Why is the theme of they can't kill us all central to the conflict between the Will Incarnate and the hero of another story? Maybe the original holder of the Will Incarnate is somebody that the hero of another story needs to strike down. Maybe they were a morally gray figure that your hero is embodying, and the hero of another story needs to strike you down to put that power to rest for good because it threatens to destabilize this place. Just off the cuff, an example of kind of how easy it is for these ideas to flow into each other. But there are quite a few different seeds of story. I think they're all quite fun and hopefully provide you with some fuel, not just at the start of the campaign, but also if you're ever stuck at a point in your campaign and not sure where the story might go, you might want to roll on this table and see where it might be. All right. Creating a character. We are into the meat of it all. We are going to decide their role-playing traits and also design them mechanically. As opposed to the components of a character, you have their level, which is the measure of their progress. It's 1 to 10 in Tactics Memoriam. Their stats. We're going to go over them in more detail in the combat section, but for now, just for the most part, you can copy base stats and change 2 numbers, and boom, your character's stats are decided. Their bonds, the connections to others that can be called upon in battle and strengthened through Tactics Memoriam's support conversation mechanic bonding during downtime. It's recommended that you start with 2 for your hero, and therefore they would be reciprocated by the people they are bonded with. Wounds. Unless you are playing the mentor as described, or rather have the mentor in your party, you're not going to worry about wounds at the start of the campaign, but again, wounds, once you receive 3, that character is defeated. And the hero, as a character that cannot be defeated, just does not get wounds. We just don't have to worry about that. Though perhaps for the Will Incarnate, it might feel extreme to potentially reincarnate when you are defeated in battle immediately. You might want to track wounds for them and only have the reincarnation happen after they have received 3. Entirely up to you there. Traits are going to be something we do go more in-depth with in this video. These are the character quirks that make everybody distinct. We'll get to that soon. Your starting inventory, your personal skills, we'll go over that later. These are all the components to creating a character. Here is an example sheet, and guess what? There is an external link on the itch.io download, which takes you to this Google Sheet, or rather this is a copy of it, which is basically a little template for creating your characters. You copy and paste their character cards into this tab, you copy and paste their skills and weapons and items from these tabs, so that it's very easy to create characters on the fly. This is going to be kind of your master GM sheet or master player sheet for the entire campaign. Recommend giving all players access to it so that they can all keep track of their growing party of characters together. Let's create some aspects of identity for our character here. Our hero as well as our antagonist, why not? So there is a table of 60 traits here. It's a roll table, so you roll dice and see what it tells you, or use an online dice roller and see what traits your characters have. So if you're recruiting a new character, this is useful. Or, you know, at the start of the campaign, you know, you might use these to fuel your hero a little bit. So let's just start there. We're going to roll a d6 for the tens place, treating a 6 as 0, and we're going to roll a d10 for the ones place. Let's roll for 3 traits, and either choose to keep all 3 or pick our favorite 2. That's something that I've been a fan of with this book. It's probably something that I want to describe in more detail, rather than being stuck to whatever the random table gives you, maybe giving you 3 options and you choose your favorite. Anyway, let's decide our hero's traits. Alright, so I've rolled a 50. Number 50. A god reborn in human form. This is utterly perfect for the Will Incarnate. Okay, so now maybe we are starting to see why the antagonist might want to take them out. This person is a god trapped in purgatory, reborn, constantly reincarnating. Let's give them another trait, because that's kind of a plot-y trait. Let's see if we can get a character quirk. Alright, that is a 39. Entrusted with a loved one's dream. That is interesting. Okay, so for one reason or another, this might be one of their motivating factors. A loved one's dream could be someone alive or dead. Maybe it is to change the wasteland for the better, even in this form. Maybe you are embodying this evil god that was defeated and trying to make it right, but the hero of another story still wants to strike you down because there are just too many chances of you going berserk. Alright. These are both kind of plot-y, so let's try to go for another character quirk here. Number 2. Oh, excuse me, not number 2. I misread my dice. This is 26. A talking skeleton! Ah! Okay. Our hero is a bag of bones. Our hero is a god reborn as a bag of bones, trying to change the shape of this place. This was a silly one, but hey, a skeleton protagonist could be interesting. Maybe they're a little bit... They could be like an edgy skeleton, or they could be a goofy skeleton, entirely up to you. But that is going to be our Will Incarnate right now. They're going to be some type of skeletal warrior, a reincarnate of a god. And hey, why not? Let's roll for some traits for our antagonist here as well. That's a 40. Our antagonist wears a mask and refuses to show their full face to strangers. That's interesting. So we kind of have a faceless protagonist and a faceless antagonist, because our protagonist has been reduced to skull and armor, and our antagonist wears a mask, refusing to show their full face to strangers. I feel like that's enough to go off of. If we want to roll for more traits for our antagonist, we can. I definitely recommend whenever you encounter a named character rolling at least once. I know that there's only 60 options here, but it is the different combination of things that really make characters unique. And here is a table of names, also 1 to 60. Let's name our protagonist and antagonist. And to be clear, you know, for a full party, we would be naming all of them as well, whether it's the players coming up with them or whether we use the random roll tables here. For the sake of expediency, we are just going to name our protagonist and our antagonist. So our talking skeleton god reborn in a human form entrusted with a loved one's dream Will Incarnate, their name is going to be, number 8, Anis. Interesting. So that's a name ripped from Tales of the Abyss, one of my favorite JRPGs. So they're femme. We love it. Named after an herb, I believe, which is very, very cottagecore of our little skeleton. All right. And our antagonist's name is going to be 29, Rhyme. Anis and Rhyme. Interesting. These are both names from some of my favorite JRPGs, Tales of the Abyss and The World Ends With You, respectively. Anis versus Rhyme. Rhyme, I think, is a very pretty name. I think it's suited to the hero of another story. Starting inventory. So there's a section on starting inventory here. It tends to make the most sense once you've already looked through the book, but basically you roll 1 to 4 or choose what they have, though we don't recommend doing number 4, which is just to join with 2 random items, unless they're like a random character that joins you later, because we want to make sure your character has the ability to fight. They start with a figment weapon appropriate for their class and another weapon of their choice. They start with a figment weapon appropriate for their class and a random item. They start with a figment weapon appropriate for their class and a novice shield or ward, etc. So they're kind of either going to be offensive, utility, or defensive. Basically, a figment weapon is just a basic weapon, right? This is an ethereal afterlife setting, so the figment weapons are kind of meant to be a little bit imaginary, a little bit evoked by memory, not quite fully tangible. And we can roll later to see what classes our characters might be when we create them. Next is going to be the downtime overview, and hey, you know what? I'm going to take back what I just said. Let's just decide what our character will be. At a few points in the book, there is this random table for deciding what character class an enemy or a player or a randomly recruited unit will be. This is the one in the Finding Friends section right here. I can roll a d8 to see what class Anis is. Anis is going to be a, number 4, a Valiant. Interesting. So a Valiant is an armored character. So let's just go all the way. We are going to go to this character sheet. It's an external link for free with the itch download, which is also free. We are going to copy paste the Valiant stat block here, tab over to the Your Character Cards Here section. Let's Control-V paste it. Anis is a Valiant, and when you are creating a character for the first time, you basically just add 2 to their starting stats, so let's add 1 to their aim, which is going to be their physical attack, and 1 to their guard, which is going to be their physical defense. We're going to start them with a figment weapon and a shield. This might sound like mumbo-jumbo now, but I promise it's all very easy once you've gone through the whole book. Creating a character is very quick once you've done it once. We can literally just Control-V paste it. Or, excuse me, let's, rather than just Control-V, let's paste just the values so that it doesn't change the color of our box. And we will scroll down to the items and give Anis a novice shield as well, which will boost their guard by 5. Again, all of this is going to make more sense once you have gone through the book. So their guard, let's just put in parentheses +5 so we know that it's from an item. Boom. The only thing left for Anis is to pick their personal skill. We're going to get to that later. And by later, let's just do it. You know, we've gone all the way. I'm kind of jumping around in the book, which is kind of showing me that there could be some differences in formatting. I'm just going to scroll down to the personal skills section. Luckily, there is an entire page dedicated for it. It's after the classes here. We're going to roll a d20 to see what Anis's personal skill is. The only reason I was a little bit wishy-washy on whether I should do this now or not is that I kind of feel like this is combat-focused, but you know what? Let's just create a different character for each video. We've committed to Anis, let's just go all the way with them. Ooh, interesting. Anis's starting ability is Lobber. Unit can throw consumable items to targets within 1 to 3 squares. Items that are already mentioned as throwable in their description, such as firebombs, have their range changed to 1 to 4 squares. So this is on pages 88 and 89. You just roll a d20 and add a character's personal skill from there. This is basically to make them distinct from other units of their class. So we are going to literally just copy and paste the Lobber skill here. All right, so boom, we've created a character. It's that easy. We'd give them bonds based on other player characters as well, but yeah. So we created Anis. We would create their antagonist as well, following the exact same rules, though the antagonist should be appropriately leveled for when they face them. So Rhyme might be an ascended unit by the time we end up properly fighting our hero of another story. You would do the same for the other characters, etc. So, all right. We've locked away character creation, and we are just going to jump on over to downtime. Because in Tactics Memoriam, if you are not fighting, you are in downtime. This is a period of rest and respite. Downtime is not freeform or roleplay. Not that there's anything wrong with freeform roleplay. It's very much a part of any TTRPG, but rather I wanted it to be a little bit mechanized when designing the game, because I wanted there to be a clear set of things for you to accomplish during downtime before the next battle would begin, to kind of just add some clarity to the pacing of the game. During downtime in the beta version, you have 3 downtime points, which you can use to do various actions, or you could have 1 per player if that makes sense, because you don't want people to feel excluded, and you would have a larger party to manage anyway. You might just increase the difficulty of the game itself to compensate for that. So your choice of downtime actions, and this is decided across the whole party, not per player, are bonding, engaging in scenes that strengthen character connections that will eventually provide stat bonuses, combat bonuses, and the option to upgrade classes via ascension. That's bonding. There's finding items, gaining 2 items by rolling on the item table twice, finding weapons, gaining a new weapon by rolling on the weapons table once, healing wounds, which is removing 1 wound from a character, finding friends, which is kind of your recruitment between battles. A traveling combatant or 2 decides to join your party. Parting ways, saying farewell to a party member who will leave something to remember them by. I'm really excited to get to that mechanic because this is kind of my solution for overcrowded party compositions. You know, you don't need 40 units in every Fire Emblem or a Tactics Ogre or Disgaea game. There is a mechanical benefit to releasing people from this struggle, sending them on their way, or letting them retire from fighting to live a life of peace in this purgatory. Or maybe they have found salvation. Entirely up to you. So, let's go through what these actions are. Bonding. The brave become strong, the wise know they still cannot do it alone. Bonding is our method of having characters grow close to each other. It will launch into either a roleplay scene between 2 characters or describing what happens between 2 characters. If you are playing the game solo without a GM, just using roll tables to decide your enemies, characters, antagonists, etc., this might be some of your solo journaling. You might write about what Annis talks about with their companion. So there is a table, there's a table of prompts as to what your characters might be talking about. So what might Annis be talking about? Let's roll a d20, because there are 20 bullet points on this table. Right now it's a 9. Realize how Memoria has changed them. So this could be Annis realizing, or their companion realizing, or them both realizing and talking about it. It's kind of just meant to be a prompt for greater discussion. And again, I think it's kind of fun that you might roll on the table 3 times and then decide which conversation seems most appropriate for the pair of characters. This is mentioned in the section here on page 41. So from there, your characters would increase their bonds with one another. So if they have a bond of 2, it would go to a bond rank of 3. If they have a bond rank of 0, they'd add a bond rank of 1 with each other. And these are bonds that can be invoked in combat. And also, importantly, at the top of page 41, once a unit has taken the bond action 10 times with any number of comrades, they are now eligible for ascension to an upgraded class. So, promoting or ascending in Tactics Memoriam to your 2nd tier classes can be achievable through bonding, because it is through connections that we grow strong in this story, or through an item called Power Through Change, which is meant to be very rare. And these ascended classes really completely change the game once you start unlocking them for your units. Now, it is noted that a unit cannot have a higher bond rank than 3 with any other character. So whoever Annis is bonding with, once they've hit a bond rank of 3, obviously the characters can still roleplay and interact with each other, but they can't share these bonding conversations together anymore. And the reason for that is because bonding in combat allows you to shift the value of dice, of your roll on the d10 in combat, up to the value of your bond, and being able to shift it by 3 once per battle per character is fine, but being able to shift it by like 10, at least as far as in my playtesting, does completely change the game in a way that I don't necessarily want it to be. It's a pretty small range that I want the dice to be able to be shifted. So you can only have a bond rank of up to 3 to characters. Think of that as your C, B, and A support conversations in Fire Emblem. Again, not that your characters can't interact with each other further beyond that. That's bonding, finding items and finding weapons. They are good uses of your downtime points if you want to start supplying your units. I'm going to scroll down past the downtime section to the weapon and item table, which is deeper in the book, pretty close to the end. The weapons table is on page 107, and the items table is on page 109. So let's do it. Let's see what random items we would gain. In downtime, you can roll twice on the items table to see what items you would gain. So you decide to take one of your downtime actions to gather some things. We got a 4 and a 17. So we would gain a salve, and the items are listed here, which is a consumable item. You use it to heal 15 HP, and then as a consumable item, it would vanish. And 17, which is pretty high, an escape rune. An escape rune is a fun consumable item where after you take any source of damage, you can teleport 3 squares. So that's really fun for getting out of dodge. If you know that your like fragile character is going to be surrounded, they take damage and they kind of teleport away, and then hopefully it'll be your turn again soon after, so that your character can escape. Let's roll on the weapons table as well before I scroll back and continue to go through everything regarding downtime. So there are 40 different weapons that you can gain on the weapons table. Or excuse me, there's 40 different bullets, though numbers 1 through 18 often multiple different figment weapons that you could gain instead, because these are kind of the basic weapons. You have a slightly higher chance of gaining them. So let's see what we get. We choose to take one of our downtime actions, one of our downtime points, to roll on the item table once, see what we get. Ooh, I rolled the wrong die. Let's keep this one, though. Alright, I literally rolled a 1. So I would choose between a figment sword or a figment spear, a basic sword or a basic spear. Now, because characters come with figment weapons by default, unless they come with items instead, this seems like it might be not the most useful thing in the world to get other basic weapons, especially because there is no system of gold or selling in Tactics Memoriam, but there is a system of trade. Anytime during downtime, there's this section on shopping and trade on page 110, your characters can engage in shopping and trading during Tactics Memoriam, trading redundant objects with passerby of the afterlife for advantages in their struggle. So the way that weapon trading works, is that any 5 figment weapons can be traded together for any weapon of your choice. So you've gathered like 5 figment swords and figment spears, etc. across your campaign, and you want to trade them in for something more valuable, like a beast bone rapier sword or something like that. You can do so. Or you can obtain any weapon of your choice by trading 2 non-figment weapons together for it. So you've acquired a bandit's cutlass and a beast bone rapier, but all your sword-using units are outfitted. Your Swift really wants a new element for their roster. Let's give them a Gravel's Rage. You trade for it that way. More details on the weapons in the combat section, but that's basically how rolling for weapons and items work and how trading for weapons works. The way the trading for items work, I briefly went over this in the system overview, but let's do it again. The item table is labeled 1 through 20, and you can think of these numbers as a value. So a steady shield, for example, is worth 14 points because you need to roll a 14 to get it. An Essence of Flood is worth 18 points because you need to roll an 18 to get it. Anything that lists 1 through 5 or 6 to 7 or 8 to 10, etc. has multiple possible dice leading the outcome. Just give them the highest number for it, so a salve is going to be worth 5. So you could trade 4 salves for a power through change item to promote a unit, for example. Maybe that's something I might change for the final game if I feel like that's too OP. Maybe salves should be less valuable than that. More playtesting to be done. Again, this is the beta version. The game has just come out. Alright, so that is not just weapons and items during downtime, or acquiring weapons and items during downtime. That is also how to roll for them, and that is how to trade them. We are now on to Healing Wounds, which costs a downtime action. The best downtime action to keep an injured unit safe from Oblivion. Remember how I mentioned that when a character is defeated in battle, they are removed from the map and given a wound for the next time that they are playable again? Once you've acquired 3 wounds, your character dies. So healing wounds is important because you can only receive 3 before Oblivion takes you, but hey, you can use a downtime action to permanently keep a character at 2, ostensibly. It does cost a downtime action, is kind of the big downside to it. This could be time where you could be finding items, finding friends, bonding your units, and if you kind of just spend the whole time healing wounds, you're not going to have the most productive campaigns, but it's meant to be there so that the game never feels totally unfair. If you want to be using your time to keep your characters safe and make sure nobody dies, you totally can. And at the end of the book, there is a section on resolving wounds and character death. Now, character death feels a little bit strange in some ways in an afterlife setting. Everybody here has died already, but keep in mind that this is purgatory, not paradise. Those sent here are not at peace. If a soul loses the strength to keep fighting, or their convictions give up entirely, they can vanish and enter oblivion. The story comes to a close. When it does happen, it should feel poignant and heavy. Not necessarily meaningful, as sometimes fate is cruel and random, but it should have weight and change those who knew the lost. So that is one of the reasons you might want to heal wounds for your characters. Not only would you lose them mechanically, but there is a story implication to it all. On to more jovial notes, finding friends. This is your way to recruit new characters in Tactics Memoriam by default, as none can survive this place alone. You can take this downtime action to recruit a new character to your cause. If your party wants more strength, they can always turn to the world and ask. Memoria is vast, but the shades condemned to this afterlife are endless, and some might share sympathy to your cause or comrades. So not only is there the table of classes you could roll for with any new character, but there are also, right here, the reasons your character might join. So let's figure out, Annis decides to take this action during downtime to recruit yet another character alongside their mentor, catalyst, and rival. There are 10 prompts on this table, so let's roll a d10. All right, number 6, they have crashed into our campsite. All right, so already quite a mental image. They've kind of stumbled upon us in some way, possibly wreaking some havoc as to why. And let's roll for what class they are. They are a Swift. Ooh, that's interesting. A Swift is the flying mage of the game. They are a rider unit. They can fly over enemies. When they damage units, they can teleport to the square next to the unit they damaged. And they are very mobile and very fragile, and they fight with elements, which is one of the magic weapons in the game. Hence the whole wind mage side to it all. Appropriately, kind of makes sense as to why a Swift might have crashed into our campsite. This doesn't necessarily have to be a goofy Looney Tunes situation. This could be maybe they were shot down by an arrow and crashed into the campsite because they were wounded. Maybe you can even give them 1 wound for flavor. And then maybe the next battle is you trying to defeat the hunter who was trying to shoot down this poor soul. So that's how finding friends works. It's very powerful because it allows you to expand your army, though, as we will talk about in the combat section, the game is made to scale to your power, so a huge amount of allies might not necessarily make the game easier if you're not spreading the love enough between them, not making sure that they have their right items, skills, bonds, etc. But recruiting new units does greatly expand your game. You basically need at least 5 in order for anybody to ascend through the bonding action reasonably. So yeah, always a good reason to find friends, not just to increase your party, but to make it easier to ascend, have a little bit more options for tackling different maps, etc. It did list in the finding friends section that this is typically for 1 unit, but hey, you know, if it ends up being 2, totally fine. Sometimes that is justified in the fiction. In the opposite sense, we next have parting ways. So long as we walk the same earth, we are under the same sky. Like I mentioned before, this is Tactics Memoriam system for basically shuffling out an overcrowded amount of units. You have too many units to show all the love to. You don't want to level up everybody together. Maybe some character's story has just come to the end. It might be worth parting ways with them. This costs an action, so it's not just saying goodbye for no reason. There are mechanical benefits to saying goodbye. It should feel significant, it should feel powerful, and it should feel like it's an act of peace in some way. It should feel meaningful and important. Regardless of the exiting unit's bond ranks, they can give you a parting gift. Choose any weapon or item in the game, that is what they can leave with you. This is more reliable to get something you need versus risking a roll on the weapon or item table. Maybe you have a superfluous unit, and it's time for Anis to ascend. Let's send home the superfluous unit and have them gift Anis a power through change, and boom, Anis has the power to ascend to one of the Valiant's second-tier classes, either the Dark Knight or the Mastermind. So that is one of the values to parting ways. However, if they have a bond rank of 3 or more with a character, and they have fought in at least one battle, they may instead leave you with a piece of themselves. This is different. If you have invested in the character, there is a potential different outcome here. A deep chat, a little bit of extra training in their favorite technique, or a moment of intimate connection. The venturing character can leave one of their skills to a person they are closely bonded with. They can be anything from a class skill to a personal skill, or even a skill that was passed to them by this action previously. So, this is kind of where the game starts to expand a little bit mechanically, something we will talk about more in the combat video. But Anis got the skill Lobber as a personal skill, and they also have the skill, what's it called? Boldness for Valiants, which allows them to move 2 extra squares when they go in a cardinal direction. Maybe you've got your eye on the superfluous unit's running draw skill, which synergizes really well with Valiants. It makes it so that when they move at least 3 squares, they gain an advantage die for the flavor that they are running and unsheathing their weapon to attack. Or this is the only way to give a skill of a different class to a unit. Like, let's say, for example, maybe you've had enough of that Swift that just joined via the Finding Friends action after they fought in one battle, you decide to part ways. They could grant Anis the Swift's ability to teleport next to an enemy that they have just damaged, which might grant Anis a little bit more mobility and utility. Units can have up to 5 skills total in Tactics Memoriam, deleting other ones if they gain other ones. So parting ways is a really important part of Downtime because it not only allows you to clear out your party, it not only allows you to potentially gain a new item or weapon at the cost of saying goodbye to somebody, but it also allows you to open these crazy skill builds later in the game. It's recommended to wait a little bit before parting ways. You know, you can min-max a character really quickly, but then everybody else is going to be lagging behind. It's recommended to do parting ways once you have truly gathered more units than you can really keep track of, or once it feels like their stories are over. And while it is nice to get a free weapon or item of whatever you want, really passing those skills on, I feel like, is the real highlight here. Now, next video, we're going to go into combat. Before that, there is one section I want to go over here in the back. So there is a section on resolving conflict outside of battle. Here it is, page 112 and 113. Tactics Memoriam is not built to be a game of skill checks, but if you need something resolved through the dice outside of combat, there is a system for doing so. Your character's stats, aim, focus, guard, and reflect, all kind of correspond to different vibes of skill. Aim might correspond to conviction, confidence, and determination. Focus might correspond to thought, intuition, and foresight. Guard might correspond to steadiness, reliability, and calm. Reflect might correspond to reasoning, deception, and conversation. So you might identify that this is a skill check because one of your player characters, let's say Anis, is trying to lie to their antagonist's messenger about something. So Annis might roll their reflect. So what they would do is they'd roll a d10 and add their reflect stat to it. And your game master, or you, if you're playing solo, would decide how difficult this check would be. There's a little table here for difficulty classes. Basically, difficulty of 1 to 5, it would take something special. It would take something special to fail. 6 to 10, most can do this. 11 to 15, this takes some skill. 16 to 20, this takes an expert. 21 to 25, few in the known world can do this. 26 to 30, demigods can do this. 30 plus, you have performed a miracle. It is very hard to roll a 30 plus, because your character's stat cannot correspond to anything higher than their level plus 10, and you're rolling a d10 on top of that, but you can have other units assist in the conflict if it makes sense for them to, granting advantage die, and like in battle, there are critical hits. If you roll 2 dice and then 2 of them come up as a pair, you get to add that number to the total of the check, potentially allowing you to clear a difficulty class a little bit easier. So that's just kind of a quick overview of skill checks. Skill checks were not the focus of Tactics Memoriam, because really the stats of Aim, Focus, Guard, and Reflect existed for combat purposes. I didn't want to feel pigeonholed in that, like, oh, characters with high aim have this type of personality and they're good at this, because that encompasses everything from archers to warriors who might have different strengths. I don't want you to treat this as a personality test. I want you to treat this as basically just an option for when the dice need to guide you as to what your next story event might be. And it does say that if it's warranted, failing a conflict may give a character a wound. Like, let's say that they fail to deceive their antagonist and their antagonist has them shot with an arrow or something like that. So that does add some stakes to rolling. Because wounds in Tactics Memoriam are not really encouraged to be random or doled out by the GM, but the cost of failing an important skill check might feel a little bit more warranted, considering that as soon as you get 3, your character dies. And, you know, they can be at full HP. Characters heal during downtime, unless they go combat to combat to combat without any downtime. Characters always heal during downtime. I think that is that is something important to mention about downtime itself. Tactics Memoriam, there's no short rest, long rest system, really. It's just, as soon as your battle is done, if you have time for downtime, boom, your characters are all healed. There is a battle prompt that says you do multiple battles without downtime, which would mean your characters that participated would not be healed, but typically, as soon as you're in downtime, as soon as you're deciding what these actions are, your character's HP is brought back to full, and they have the option to tend to their wounds at the cost of downtime points, etc. So, that is the character creation and downtime overview for Tactics Memoriam. Apologies that at the start I was a little wishy-washy on whether we should create our character all the way or not, but yeah, I think it made more sense to just keep it together. Character creation focus, and then downtime focus. Alright, so the next video that we are going to we are going to break down how combat works in Tactics Memoriam. I talked about it a bit in the overview, but we are going to go deeper on that next time. Thank you so much, and I will see you then.